Hey everybody, it's Professor Stines, and today we're kind of here to do assignment 8, and it's going to be about XML. And there's a little bit of JavaScript down in part 3, but it's going to be mostly about XML. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language, and it's pretty similar to HTML. It's probably a little less popular than it was about 10 years ago. It's still very valid and very much out there. If you've ever been to a website and seen a link to follow an RSS feed, which stands for really simple syndication, if you've ever clicked a button to follow an RSS feed, you're basically subscribing to an XML document. The reason why I say it's probably less popular now is that the big sites like Twitter and Facebook and other ones, when they first built, that's one of the ways that they syndicated across different websites was to use XML. The problem with it is that eventually XML had a problem where it couldn't quite scale to the needs of those kind of corporations and stuff. So it's still very valid and it's pretty easy to use, and we'll use it here, and you'll find it in lots of places. But most times now, outside sites are using APIs with JavaScript to syndicate themselves instead of trying to use XML in some sort of way. It's just mainly a processing. I think the problem comes is that XML has to be written as one complete document, and when you use APIs, you can just pull pieces of things out. So that's kind of the big difference of, I guess, why one works better than the other. What I like about XML is that it seems like every time I start working with XML, and even when I start getting into these schemas, XSDs, what I kind of get reminded of is I guess I've always kind of been, as a programmer, even in school, I was kind of always trying to figure out where zeros and ones came in as a programmer. I can look at a diagram for a motherboard and see that the pass on the board that the electricity travels, and a zero is one 0 to 1.5 watts or something like that. But writing code, I never really saw where am I going to write code where zeros and ones make sense. The closest I've probably ever gotten was doing assembler, but it seems like every time I think about XML, I get back to that zeros and ones, kind of creating a programming language of your own kind of feeling, is kind of what's going on here. Is we've got a data file, and a schema is going to kind of parse and make sure that the data file is good. And it's kind of like a programming language in a way, is that you have the language itself that you write, and then there's something behind it that's validating and making sure that your code looks good. And then you kind of have something that runs your code, and that's kind of what JavaScript's going to do to XML. So, Lexer and parser, lexicographical analyzers and parsers are a pretty big deal when it comes to making programming languages, and in some sense, that's kind of what we're doing here. Is we're kind of going to define a schema that's kind of acting like a parser of sorts. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of start an XAMPP this week, because with XML we're going to start running into the same issue we've had before of the same origin issue that some browsers have, where they don't allow us to execute stuff by file. So we're going to kind of create didn't look like it started up running. There it goes. So what we're going to do is we're just going to I'm going to get this guy going, and there should be a video on there already that kind of gets Apache going. And once I get it going, I can kind of type in localhost, but instead what I'm going to do is just kind of come out here, htdocs folder, and create me a new folder. You can kind of see I've already got the one that I've done before. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of recreate it. Kind of what I've been doing for these assignments is do them once and then record it when I do it the second time. Might be why it seems like I'm so good at it. Let's see. We're gonna look in. What I'm gonna do is pull this guy over a little bit so I can read it at kind of the same time. So we need a file name called productorder.xml. And XML files are like other files that we're working with. They're just basically text files. Except we're in HTML, there's a doc type as the first thing. We're going to kind of set the XML one, and that's kind of this version 1.0. Why are you trying to autocomplete me? Don't worry about that. So one of the things that we're going to need in XML, I'm glad it kind of reminded me because I almost forgot, is I have a plugin called XML Tools, and if you don't have it, you can kind of come into plugins of Notepad++, go to Plugin Manager, and it's going to get this big giant list here down at the bottom. And it's not in mine because I guess I got mine installed already. Let's see, I'm just going to remove it. Oop, it's going to throw a. Show you the process. It's trying to take it out. It's showing up on my other monitor though. Okay. So now it just kind of looks like a regular file, but if you go plugins and plugin manager, show plugin managers, then at the very bottom of the list there'll be this one, XML tools. That's the one we need. Just kind of install it. And it might take a minute or two. You might get some errors that are, it's not validated or something, and it's okay. Just let it roll. Okay, so now that I'm up, and when I tried to save, it kind of threw me an error. Well, because I've made I've made an XML document, but I haven't put anything in it, so that's the error it's kind of giving me. But that's kind of all you need to get started. Is this is kind of declaring it as an XML file. Okay, so we're gonna look at here and here, and pull this back just a little bit, or move this over. How about that? So basically I need to make an XML document that kind of contains all the things that we've been doing thus far, and it's going to kind of hold multiple entries. So I'm going to define an opening statement called my orders. I should put an S in both of them, I suppose. And so what this element's going to do, this element's going to hold all of my orders, and that's kind of the only purpose it's got here. But inside each one, I'm going to make one particular order. And in each order, I'm going to kind of make these things. So I have a product and a quantity and a unit price, discount rate. Let's call it my date just in case date is reserved. First name, last name, ooh, that's a lot of them. Okay, so in my orders, I have one order, and in the order I have product, quantity, unit price, discount rate, my date, a first name, a last name, payment type, card number, security code. Looks good to me. So hopefully now when I save it, I don't get that error message. One of the ways that you could also validate XML, I come back to the plugin up here. It's got its own little menu here now. So you can kind of check the syntax. No errors detected. If you were to do something like this, a lot of people have been fighting this discounted rate, is if I go to save it, it's going to kind of throw me, at error line 7, opening whatever, having problems. So, it's pretty nice. It'll kind of help you make sure that you're writing XML pretty good if you save pretty often. I don't really save that often, so I guess what I'm going to do is just going to copy this order, and I'm going to add 2 more. So now I kind of have 3 orders, and this is kind of where I'm going to start populating with some fictitious data. So I'm going to say just make some stuff up. One-handed lightsaber, and I only need one. It's $100, 10% off. Date he's buying it's going to be today, so that's 2015 10/10. 10/10. name is Luke. Last name is Skywalker. Paying by Visa. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And be a little bit. Just kind of copy this guy. Go ahead and throw it down in card number so I don't have to type that out 500 times. Hope you're enjoying the class. I like working with code. It kind of gets easier after a while. You just kind of get used to seeing it. I use keyboard a lot more than I do mouse usually, especially when I'm just doing it myself. Okay, on to the next one. I'm going to make something else up. Laser crossbow. And we need 2 of those. They're 200 each. And 25 off. And we're going to say that one's from yesterday. I'll say Han bought it. I don't know Chewie's last name. And we'll say he is MasterCard. And finally, we have how about some hairspray? And at least 1,000 of those. They're $5 a pop, 10% off. Say that one's from tomorrow. That's Leia's. Don't want Leia's last name, but I'll also just say hers. She's Princess is her last name, and she's using Discover. So I saved it. I didn't get an error when I saved it, but I'm going to go ahead and go to plugins and check my syntax again. And it looks good, so that's good. Okay. So I want to look back at my file here. What I'm going to do now is we're kind of moving into part 2. Is we're going to create a schema for this guy. And I got to tell you, I think our tutorial is a little bit complex when it comes to schemas. It's kind of telling you how to reference it, so I'm going to come back and end up copying this in a minute. But what I'm going to use to kind of explain it, I suppose, is the schema tutorial. So this is W3 School schema tutorial. It's kind of right here under the XML tutorials. And I'm just going to kind of copy it here because I want to get started with it. So I'm just going to copy their example. And okay, new text document. This one's going to be product order.xsd XML schema. And I'll open that guy up. I'm just going to kind of copy what's going on here. What this example is kind of showing is an XML document that only has one node, note, and then inside the node note it's a complex type and it has a sequence of things, and inside the sequence is these things. So if I were kind of looking at my XML document, their example is just kind of starting here. It's not kind of starting with the my order statement. So it's kind of most of the way there. It's a good way to start, but it just needs a little bit more work to it to get to what we need it to be. So I'm going to kind of start by making the outer node the my orders XML, and this might help if I kind of pull it over and we can kind of look at the XML at the same time as we're writing these statements out. Yeah, that should work. Alright, so I'm going to have an outermost element called my orders, and it's going to be a complex type, and it's going to be defined by a sequence of things. But the sequence is not going to be the elements in this order. I'm going to create a kind of a new container of sorts, and this one's going to be named my order. And you can also add other statements on here. I'm going to go ahead and put The maximum times that this thing can occur is unbounded. And what that means is I can have as many orders as I want. But instead of being just a kind of element, it's going to be an element that contains other things. So I'm going to have to open it up like that, and I'm going to kind of just take these ones out. Indentation in XSDs is very important for pretty obvious reasons. We're going to get very nested very fast here in a minute. Okay, so I have the my orders. My orders is a complex type. It's defined by a sequence of these order elements. And so this is kind of where we get back to what the tutorial initially had, is that this is going to be order and this is going to be the stuff that's inside. So I'm going to kind of, I guess, recopy it again. Yeah, sure. Probably should type it out yourself. And that way you get a better idea of how it actually works. So it's a complex type, and it's going to have a lot of things inside of it. And right now they're string, but I'm going to go through here, and let's get this guy back up over here. Kind of define everything as a string at first, just to make sure that it's working. So I have a product, I have a quantity, unit price, discount rate, my date, first name, last name, payment type. Well, probably a little bit more typing this week than we haven't had in the past. Let's see, payment type, card number, security code. Alright, so I saved it, and I didn't get an error when I saved it. And kind of the same as XMLs, I can come up here to the plugins, to the XML tools, and check my syntax. And no errors detected, so that's good. Let's see. This is where I would probably look at our tutorial on the schemas page, which is right here. We're going to kind of reference this schema, and we're going to kind of do it this way. I'm not going to worry about this statement for right now. I think you can include it and it won't matter, but I'm going to worry about these two for the moment. And so what I'm going to do is, what we're doing is we're tying this schema to our XML file. And so we're going to be calling the XML file, in our code. So that's kind of where we have to put this declaration at. So I'm going to kind of put it right here. And we're not referencing trees.xsd. We're referencing product order.xsd. Alright, try this guy again. Okay. So far we've been using check syntax, but now we're going to use validate. And validate is going to give me a little bit better of a message, and it's telling me that it looks good. Schema validation, XML is valid. That means that what I've defined over here in my XSD, my XML file is following it. Now, if I were to kind of like remove something, like take out a field, which is fine if I didn't have a schema attached to it, I think. But if I hit validate, I probably should get an error. And I got an error this time saying the schema couldn't be validated. Expecting last name element that was not found. So that's kind of the whole point is, anybody can write any XML that they really want to, and then they can write a schema that kind of interprets it and makes it do what they want it to do. So let's see, looking back at the assignment, we're about halfway done with part two, in that we've defined a schema and it's checking for string, which basically anything's a string, but type character is a string. So everything is a string, and it's validating, which is good. And then we haven't really tackled this sentence yet, but so let's see. I'm gonna kind of make some of these guys required, and by having the element in there, I think it's kind of we're kind of saying that it's required. First one I'm going to worry about, I suppose, is unit price. Is decimal type required greater than 100 or greater than 0? So look at unit price here. Now what I have to do is I'm going to have to kind of define it a little bit differently to give it a better style. So I'm going to kind of take the slash off the end of it, make it a rooted element like this. And when we do this, one of the things we have to do is we have to define the type in a different area. I'm going to take that guy off, and we're going to say that this is a simple type. Let's see, I'm going to kind of show you the W3C page, I guess. Now, this is kind of what we're doing now. We're defining elements kind of directly, and I'm trying to find the one that shows simple types. It's probably down here in string types. So if I just wanted it to be a decimal, I could just change the data type from string to decimal. But I want to kind of make sure that it's greater than 0. So kind of look, min inclusive is one that's here, looks like. Not complex or simple type. It's in here somewhere, I know it is. And let me go back to our tutorial. I'm pretty sure it's there too. We need to clean this up a little bit more. No, simple elements. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing. We're defining an element. I guess it's okay if we do it that way. Alright, well, I'm going to back it up and just give it a shot. Let's see. It's not how I did it, but let's see if it works. So I'm going to check my syntax on it first. Looks good. I'll say min exclusive 0. And check our syntax again and see if it works. Oop, I didn't save it. Cool. It's not how I did it, but it looks like it works. So if I were to come into unit price and give it a negative 100, hopefully when we go to validate, I guess it doesn't like it there. I didn't think it would. Alright, well, long story short, I'm just going to kind of... It's in there. I know it is. It's how I wrote mine. So, okay, unit price, I'm going to call it a simple element. It's a simple type of element as opposed to a complex type of element. And what I want to define is I'm going to put a restriction on it. And this is kind of where I changed the value to base equals XS decimal. and this is where I add min exclusive. Okay. Okay, so this is the error saying that, must be greater than 0. That means my min exclusive is working and saying, this guy is greater than 0. I know it's in restrictions, I bet. Yeah, there you go. We're defining the element name, calling it a simple type, adding a restriction, giving it a base, which is a little bit different than we did for regular simple elements. Is you have a type with the data type, but when you're kind of doing restrictions, you're just kind of saying it's a simple type and kind of doing it this way. That's where you kind of define the value. So anyway, long story short, looking back at the assignment is... Alright, cool. So I was able to define unit price. It's the element's required, and it's got to have a value of greater than 0. So that's kind of enforced. That's a good thing. I think there's also might be a required statement or something somewhere. Yeah, I'm not gonna worry about it. So these are kind of going to be all pretty similar. You're going to want to change one to date, and this one's going to be a decimal type as well. You could change discount rate to be inclusive of 0 instead of exclusive. And I'll kind of leave this one up to you and figure out on your own. I don't think it should be too hard. Pretty sure there's kind of an example that kind of shows you how to enumerate those types. So that one shouldn't be too hard. So I'm going to kind of try to keep the video a little bit short. I know a lot of people are overseas and stuff, so I'm going to kind of skip into part 3, which, assumedly, I've got a good XML document now. So, each product order has a need ID attribute. So I need to kind of come back to after the sequence has completed and add an attribute to the order. This is the sequence for order is being ended here. So I need to add an attribute to the order called ID, and it's going to have a type of integer. No, this is it, I guess. I wrote it the first time I went through. Use is required. And so I'm going to save that. If I kind of go back to my XML, good thing I didn't skip to part 3 quite yet. I'm going to change that to positive to 100. If I validate, ID is required but missing. So I need to kind of go back in my XML and add an ID attribute to each of the orders. So that's going to be ID1, that one's 2, and this one is 3. So if I validate it this time, I'm back to being good. Cool. Alright. So let's see. I'm going to pull this file into this file. And what I want to do is I want to create a new page. I'm just going to call it index.htm. Well, you only gotta call it that if you really don't want to. So this one's going to be an HTML page, so it's got a doc type of HTML. And HTML, HTML, HTML. I'm going to go ahead and add it because I'm up here, and it's well, I'm just going to change my file names. I don't care. XML test.js. I haven't created it yet, but I will. And if ID equals output to write out the stings. So I'll go ahead and create that JavaScript file while I can. XML test. So many different ways to call files. That just seems. Why don't I just use what I'm supposed to use, huh? It's like the XML.js, and it's kind of probably not a good name to use. Alright, and so when the window loads, I want to call an init function. And I'm going to go ahead and define that function, init. So I'm kind of good and ready to go. I'm going to throw an alert statement in here just to make sure that it's working. Oh, didn't change my file from one to the other, huh? Let's see. Cool. Alright, so basically I'm kind of to the point where I can start doing something cool. So I'm going to start with an example out here on their website. And if I go to XSD example, or actually, you know what? I think it's it's one of these ones down here. I think it's this one, the third one. We'll find out for sure in a second. Yeah, okay. So loading an XML file. That's what we're going to be doing here. So that's the third link. These other ones are helpful too. I've been saying it all along. There's lots of ways to do the same thing. So I will give you permission this week to copy out this section of code. Yeah, I would prefer you to actually type it in yourself because it does really help when you're the one that types it out. Copying and pasting, I've been doing it a long time. I know what I'm doing. So, but I'm going to kind of copy this guy and post it out here and fix my indentation a little bit. This needs to go one more in. Alright, and I'm going to change books to our XML file, which is product order. And get element by ID, we're calling it not demo, but output. And we're going to get the order tag and save it. Oh, duh, Mr. Stines, this is why you did this. Localhost / my page. Oh, unfortunately it didn't help, did it? Let's see. Let me look back at my code. Well, at least the cross-origin issue isn't a problem. That means I'm getting, because this is, okay, what we copied over, I guess I should explain it. We're creating an XML request, an HTTP request, and we're setting a listener on it for when the state of it changes, on ready state change. And when that happens, we're going to execute a function. And this function is going to say if the ready state is 4 and the status is 200, which means it's like A-OK, basically. It's a good, I got something back. Then I want to execute my function and throw my XML file at it. So I suppose it would be this line, and this is kind of a long line. I'm just going to kind of help shorten this up a little bit so it's easier to read on my little screen. Is say var my out is equal to get element by ID outputs. That way I can just say my out HTML document.get. And it's still kind of long. Let's see, probably spare some of it. And save it again. Except I'm going to throw an alert statement in here just to make sure I'm getting this far. Hopefully I'm getting this far. Alright, so my alert statement's working. It's just the way I'm looking at my code isn't working. I'm not able to set my inner HTML. This is basically returning nothing. I could also kind of test that if I just kind of copied this line and did an alert on it. Probably should get nothing back. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess with this line a little bit and see if I can't get it figured out. At least so I can get something out of it. Let's look at my orders and see if we can get something out of that one. Guess not. The struggle is real. The problems you will have, everyone has. It's all part of the game. Let's see. I think the way I want to do it is I want to get the orders tags. Okay, I remember what I did and why I did it. I'm going to define another function. And in this function, I'm going to call it order. And I'm going to pass in a order. Sorry, had an itch. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this guy like an object. That way it's a little bit easier to find the items that are popping in. And so I'm going to kind of define some define things, and I'm going to define an order ID for this and a product for this. Quantity for this, and a unit price for this. And by using the this statement, I'm making an object out of it. Let's just call it that for right now. I'll put it back since it was there. Okay, so basically what's going on is I am getting back stuff from this, but it's kind of hard to tell that it's getting stuff back from it. And I guess I don't really have a good way to kind of explain it. Alright. Orders, I'm going to try to, let's put it that way. Orders is getting the elements by tag name of orders. So in my XML document, I guess it would make sense to kind of pull my XML document back out so it's easy to see, a little easier to see. Alright. So I want to pull all the orders tags. I know there's only one, but this is kind of how you have to do it. I'm going to pull all the orders tags, and for each one of them I find less than orders dot length, orders dot length I plus plus, I want to cast order sub I to an order object. So I'm going to say this order, T order, is equal to order with, I should totally use some different words in here, it's getting complicated. Order, orders, sub I. And in order to kind of make this happen, I'm in the order, I'm at this point, I've pulled all the objects that are in here, right? Order, not orders. Okay. I've pulled all of these tags into an array called orders. And for each one in the array, I'm going to cast this order to an order object and call it this, and then what this guy is going to do is it's going to call back my object's property here. So hopefully if I hit refresh, product of undefined, no, I'm missing a new statement. I get an A. It seemed like a long way to go to get A, and I get 3 of them, so at least I know I got 3 orders, which is good. But I guess this is where, if I'm looking at the example of it pulling element by tag name this way, this is kind of to the point I'm at. That's kind of why I went this direction, I guess, is I can kind of just use it here, but instead of XML doc, it's going to be A order, because remember that A order is holding this one specific order tag, and I'm going to pull the product here. So if all goes well, I'll get 3 pop-ups this time, with each with the order name in it. One-handed lightsaber, crossbow, hairspray. Okay, so I know it's a long way to get there. Hey, look, I got a thing and it didn't give me an error. That was neat. It kind of took me a long way to get there, I guess, and I suppose there's probably a better way. That's kind of how I like to do the double lookup, is I'm kind of casting an order object and using some methods to kind of pull it out. So I'm going to kind of do that a couple more times, I suppose. And pulling product. Whoop, click the wrong one. I want to have my XML up. There we go. And that one. So I got a product. I got the quantity. It's going to end up being a long video. Quantity. Stat unit price I already got going, so discount rates. Ah. Got my dates. First dot last name. Anyway, probably should get the idea by now. Kind of keep going through, making the things. So now I should have pretty much a lot of my object kind of figured out. I guess I'll go ahead and get the attribute off of here. That would just be because a order is just in order. It's get attributes of ID. So instead of an alert statement, though, what I want is I want to create a table. So I'm going to start with a table tag and my out inner HTML. Yeah, my out. Yeah. I don't know why it's not code highlighting for me. It's usually like you start typing in inner HTML, it's going to figure it out. And a closing table tag. And basically I just kind of want to add add a row each time I kind of go through that for loop, and this is one of the reasons why I made this object here is I'm going to kind of define my own function, which is get HTML row, and it's going to be a function. And I'm going to have another HTML tag. Throw a closing, ending tag on it. I guess I should have kind of done it all at one time, huh? So basically, I'm gonna kind of add in this dot order ID. Alright. I took my alert statement out, and this guy is going to be t order dot get HTML row parentheses. Ta-da! Man, it took a long time to get here, didn't it? Wow. So I'm kind of satisfying part 3 now, as I have a table tag that has some rows in it, and it's pulling rows out of my XML document. So I guess really all at this point I would need to do is I could come up here to the top and add my field headers. So that would be ID and products, kind of mixing in my HTML here, and quantity. So now I kind of have some field headers on top. And unit price, forgot unit price. So that's pretty neat. That's kind of the way I solved it. There's definitely lots of ways to do it. I mean, if you look at the examples on how to read from XML, I mean, this is just kind of one way to get it started. There's lots of other ways to kind of get it started. Anyway, I hope this video wasn't too long. I know it's kind of a lot to take in this week, but hopefully it won't be too much for you. We're just kind of hitting XML this one week. It's really worth knowing. Like I didn't put a I need to get better about my own syntax. Um, it's we're only kind of hit this week. It's still really popular. Like I said, RSS is um, still really popular out there. I was like, wonder why autocorrect wasn't thinking anything about it. So this is kind of an example. I was mentioning RSS feeds is a really simple syndication. It's how a lot of news sites and stuff and websites in general kind of give you a feed to their website. Well, this is an example of, and probably not the example of, but this is an example of the RSS an RSS kind of XSD document like we made for our product order. So it's definitely worth knowing, and I can't. To be honest, I can't tell you the last time I made an XSD. I've made lots of XML files, lots and lots of XML files, but you don't always have to validate against the schema. The way I'm using JavaScript here, there's no reason why I would really have to have this document to force a certain style of XML. Um, because technically, I mean, if I can't match how my things read out of XML, then it's not working anyway, right? So, um, anyway, I kind of hope this was helpful, and hopefully don't bang your head against the wall too much this week. I know it's probably more typing than we've done in quite a few assignments, most likely. Um, but hope you enjoy it, and we'll be moving on kind of into the PHP here soon. So anyway, hope it was helpful. Have a good one. Goodbye.